Next up, it's AIM-listed Technology Minerals, which operates at both ends of the battery metals spectrum. Not only does it explore for battery metals, but TechMin announced environmental agency approval for the UK's first industrial-scale lithium-ion battery recycling plant in Wolverhampton this morning. The share price jumped 14% initially on the news. Sadly, it only ended up 5% on the day, giving TechMin a market cap of around £37 million. I'm delighted to be joined live this evening by Alex Stanbury, and he is the CEO. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, Donald. Good to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic, Alex. It sounds as though it's been a roller coaster year or so for you guys.
It certainly has. It's been a lengthy process. This obviously it was a great joy to announce this morning that we are now fully licensed at Wolverhampton. We have all our permitting, all our licenses, our ABTOs, everything in place, ready for operation.
I'm going to ask you an emotional question, Alex. Given that you've been through a long slog to get to this, what does it feel like? What does it mean for the team?
It feels great. It's really exciting. I mean, it's taken a long time to get here, and it's really nice to close off what we consider to be phase one, which is the building of our proprietary lithium-ion recycling plants. And it's the UK's first industrial scale lithium-ion recycling plant. And we're now into phase two, which is operations. And all the conversations we've been having over the last few months about supply of front-end battery feedstock from across all sorts of industries, we can now come to fruition. There's such a pent-up demand in this country for lithium-ion battery recycling. There's no one doing it. Everyone's having to store, and those that aren't storing on the smaller side, unfortunately, are putting their batteries into landfill, which is causing landfill fires. It's causing fires in the recycling centres as they've all been going into the wrong bins. So there's a huge amount of demand in this country for it.
Bad news for them, good news for you. Okay, we're looking forward to hearing your presentation tonight, Alex.
Thank you. Okay. 1 second. So I'm Alex Stanbury, CEO of Technology Minerals. Some of you have met me before. This is the rest of the team. Got Chairman Robin Brundle, who I think some of you have met before as well, CFO James Cable, and on the mining side, Lester Kemp and Wilson Robb. The group structure of Technology Minerals is TM plc, which is listed on the standard list. We listed in November 21. And there are two sides to this business. Firstly is the minerals exploration side. And the idea is we're a circular economy for battery metals. So we look at a dual track. Firstly is exploration for virgin extraction of the critical materials that make up the cathodes in lithium-ion batteries. And then the second side of that is reclaiming these metals from used lithium-ion batteries, from anything from trains, forklift trucks, EVs, vapes. So it's a dual track for supply of critical metals, of which there's a massive shortage globally. Under Recyclus Group, which is currently 49% owned by Technology Minerals, sits Libat, which is 100% owned, and Halo, which is 100% owned. Libat deals with the lithium-ion battery recycling. Halo deals with the lead-acid battery recycling. So we're about creating a circular economy for battery metals. We're looking for the raw materials. We're also reclaiming the raw materials. At the moment, our processes take in the recycling side, take those reclaimed lithium-ion batteries and take them back to a substance called Blackmass. It's that Blackmass which contains all the critical materials, which are so in need for creating new batteries. And the next stage of our process will be to try and provide for the UK a capability it doesn't yet have as well, which would be the separation of that black mass into its constituent parts. At the moment, we set ourselves up to be a problem solver because the UK is so desperately in need. So we take the batteries and we recycle them into black mass, and that black mass is then a commodity that gets sold out to commodities traders and those who have the refining capability. But we're in close conversations with the government here, and that supply chain is missing in its entirety in the UK at the moment. As you know, there's a little bit of lithium extraction going. Well, it's planned in the southwest, and then there's a lithium refinery planned up in the northeast. But in terms of recycling of batteries and then the separation of the materials within, that doesn't exist here. So anything that we and any of that, all those materials need to be shipped abroad, which is obviously not much good for what the UK is trying to achieve. So there's a big supply chain gap that we're trying to fill. Yeah. So the business overview of Recyclus is again two sides. So we have lithium-ion battery recycling, which is in Wolverhampton. As we've said, we now have all the permits and licenses to start our operations there, and lead-acid battery recycling, which is in Tiverton, just outside Birmingham. That is awaiting its final permit variations. Unfortunately, just delayed due to the Environmental Agency being hugely backlogged from COVID. They unfortunately were needed to lay off an awful lot of people at the beginning of COVID, and they're just trying to staff up again now. So they're doing things in sequence rather than in parallel. So hence why we got Wolverhampton first, and we will get to Tiverton, we expect, within about 8 to 12 weeks. This is a slide on the battery recycling market. I think there are over 320 gigafactories in the pipeline now, all of them needing, most of them needing nickel, cobalt, and manganese for the cathodes, and lithium. So there's the, 500,000 metric ton deficit by 2030. So there just simply isn't the pipeline of projects, be it in recycling or in virgin extraction, to fill that deficit, which is why we're coming at it from both sides. We obviously believe fully in the recycling market, but the recycling market can truly only ever meet about, in the near term, about 20% by 2040. So there still needs to be the virgin extraction. There's been a massive underinvestment in the junior mining market, exploration market in the last decade, really. And from zero to a mine, it can take at least 10 years. So that's the reason we have the other side of the business, which is the mineral exploration. It's an option value. We operate it as a capital light business, but it means that we can come at this from two angles and really ride the increasing demand. So the business model for Recyclus is front end. So we're a processor of batteries. So we need front end feedstock, and we do that through we get that feedstock through pent up demand here from the OEMs, from electronics manufacturers, but also we have a logistics partner in a company called Slicker, which I'll come on to in due course. But they do collections around the country on our behalf. They're already picking up their hazardous waste and oily rag, so waste oil collector, and they wanted another string to their bow. So we have a very symbiotic relationship with them, whereby they will pick up the lithium-ion batteries from all the OEMs and so all the car dealers, etc., that they already service. And then obviously on the back end of that, we process in the middle. On the back end, we end up with Blackmass, which is a commodity that's very easily saleable. It contains all the critical materials, and those critical materials are much needed by all of the commodities traders. And so we have already sent out samples to about 9 major institutions, and those 9 majors have come back and all said that they want the entirety of our offtake. Now, as obviously it's up to us what we do with it, and we'll see what the best terms are and how it's going to work for us best, in terms of either signing up with one, if they're going to give us the terms we require, which could be some further cash for expansion, or we'll look to put the black mass into an auction. We have all the laboratories, etc., on site so that we can test the quality of our black mass as well. So the revenue streams for Recyclus, again, for the lithium-ion side. Lithium-ion is novel in terms of the recycling, so we can command a gate fee. So people pay us to take their lithium-ion. They can either bring it to the gate, or we will collect it with our logistics partner, but we get paid to take it. Then we process, and then we sell the black mass. So we've got two streams of revenue on that. And then on the lead acid side, it's a much older industry. But it's still one that needed cleaning up, and that's where we came in. But lead is linked to LME, so we buy in the batteries, we process them, we sell out the plastics, and we sell out the lead, and we make a margin. It's a simple business, but it's a nice one with solid, stable margin. So whilst we were looking at the and discussing with all the suppliers of lithium-ion batteries for us and all the people with the problem, we saw another part of the supply chain that was missing, which is that lithium-ion batteries are incredibly dangerous to transport. And there have been, as I said, a number of fires, both in the recycling centres, landfill, and also there have been some sort of notable fires in transportation of automobiles as well that have taken out. I think it was £500 million worth of automobiles last year on a ship. So the transportation of lithium-ion batteries is incredibly dangerous, and there was very little in the market for transportation. So we have our own cutting-edge ADR-compliant certified storage boxes, which we have created on site and we build on site. And these are now ready to go. And as soon as now we have our permitting, and as we will start to sell or lease these to various insurance companies, logistics companies, car dealerships, etc., so they can all have them on site. So any lithium-ion batteries that they have lying around can go in this, and that means if there's a thermal runaway event, which unfortunately happens more than one would like, which is where the lithium-ion battery starts to break down from the inside, and suddenly that gets extremely hot, bursts into flames, and it's incredibly difficult to put out. And obviously then that propagates fire throughout warehouses or wherever. This will avoid that. This can get to 2,000 degrees on the inside and only get to 80 degrees on the outside. So for transportation and also for storage, this is a really very necessary solution. And now we're in a position where we can actually service these boxes. So we can give them to people, we can lease them to people, we can sell them to people, and then we can go and pick them up. So take the batteries out of them, process them through the plant and give them back an empty box. Previously, obviously, we couldn't process the batteries and we had no storage capability on site because we weren't licensed. So we've been waiting for this moment that we've now got all our licenses, and now we can push this business model as well. So it's very exciting. As mentioned earlier, we have a partnership which is logistics based with Slicker Recycling. It's as simple as that they have 9 depots around the country. They do 25,000 collections a year. They are a waste oil collector, but they wanted another string to their bow. They have call centers, etc. So it saves us a huge amount on costs on logistics. We don't have to do our own logistics; they can do it all for us. And it's as I said, it's a very symbiotic relationship. So very exciting to be kicking that off properly now as well. We also have R&D partnerships. We've had a long-standing one with Warwick University now, who have been a knowledge transfer partner for Recyclus. And then with the University of Birmingham more recently, and we just got awarded £1.96 million on an Innovate UK grant. And that grant is to create a small recycling, lithium-ion battery recycling mobile unit, which would go onto the back of a lorry. In due course, it would be an electric lorry, but it means we can go to the source of the problem. So rather than having to have everything come to us, we can do mobile collection, which is great if there's a battery in imminent danger. But also the government's intention is for lithium-ion batteries to be able to be picked up curbside. So there'll be another bin, whichever color it may be, where you pop your lithium-ion batteries into it, be it electric toothbrush, whatever you have at home that's now defunct. Rather than it going into the black bin, it goes into that bin, and we would come around and collect it. And this is very much on the government agenda, and we're in close conversations with the likes of DEFRA about this. So it's very exciting. So the key milestones for Recyclus really, I've just been through them, but we now have our first lithium-ion plant about to start running. It's going to take us about 6 weeks to put in the final stages. So we wanted to wait until we had the feedback from the environmental agency before we started spending money on the fire suppression systems. So the plant itself is built. It's just the external fire suppression now we're putting in, and some ducting to do with ventilation. And within about, I think it's going to be 4.5 weeks from now, we should be ready to put our first batteries through. So very exciting. We have a first mover advantage in the UK on lithium-ion battery recycling, and as I said, there's no one else here doing the front end, so the demand is huge. So yeah, very, very exciting. And then on to the other side of the business, which is our global exploration portfolio. We have projects in the US, Ireland, northern Spain, and Cameroon. Our US projects are in Idaho. We have two projects. They're centered around cobalt. They surround Jervois. In South Dakota, we have a polymetallic play, which we've earned 10% of, and I think we're probably going to leave it there because we have plenty of other things to focus on. In Ireland, we have our lithium project, Northern Spain, a nickel copper cobalt project, and Cameroon is a big nickel laterite. We have gone across the suite of battery metals. They seem to sort of pop in and out of favor. Lithium is definitely the metal of the moment. Cobalt was, and at the moment it's taking a bit of a backseat to nickel because the cathodes of the lithium-ion batteries, the NMC, which is the dominant cathode, has become nickel dominant. So suddenly there isn't enough nickel in the world. Well, we've got a couple of very nice nickel projects, one laterite and one sulfite. And then our Irish lithium project has really been getting a huge amount of attention. We were at PDAC recently, and with a 26 kilogram boulder of spodumene that grades at 3.75% lithium dioxide. And I can't tell you the attention that got from everyone walking past. Even the Australians were quite aghast at what a nice piece of spodumene it was. So we come out of that with NDAs in place for both Spain and Ireland for companies wanting to joint venture into them. So it was a very worthwhile trip. The northern part of our Irish project is under joint venture already with a company called Global Battery Metals on the TSXV, but our southern portion remains clear. So we're looking for a partner for those. Then we have our Idaho projects, as I went through a second ago. We now have got combined between Blackbird and Imperium, 18,000 acres with 21 drill holes permitted. And we sold 10% of that last year for £900,000 and we have another 20% under option at the moment. And we expect to be able to transact on that this year in one way or another. Astamet in Spain is our nickel sulfide project, which has also got a lot of cobalt in it as well and copper. And this was an old mine. So we are chasing a historic resource, and you can go into the mine and see the mineralization. And it grades extremely high, up to 28% copper, 1.88% cobalt, and 1.68% nickel. That's from the grab samples. Existing mine that was closed down in the 1950s, just due to the dip in the copper price. This would obviously be a very profitable mine in today's terms. So we're there doing underground safety work and other geophysics, ready to drill in the second half of this year, and we may well have a joint venture partner on at that point in order to pay for that drilling. Leinster in Ireland. This is our lithium project. So as I said, we've been getting grab samples and of up to 3.75% lithium dioxide. A very exciting project, especially with the focus on lithium globally at the moment. It's really got everyone excited, and for us, it shows a huge amount of option value. Cameroon is our largest project in terms of land, in terms of land. We had various issues with that during the year to do with where the licenses sat. It took us until very recently to get that sorted out. We now have it valid under Cameroon law. So as of this week, we've literally been out doing our first exploration there and putting beacons out on the site on all of the licenses. So what comes up next is some geochem, some soil sampling, lithographics, lithochemical sampling, all of which we'll be able to announce soon. South Dakota is a project that is a nice polymetallic project, but at the moment we've got enough focus on the rest of our other projects, so we're leaving this one be. So we've had a really fantastic couple of months after a hard slog. We've got our licenses. We've raised £2.5 million from a high net worth investor who showed good faith in us, and that allowed us to retire our banking facility. The banking facility had been a necessary part to get us through the period of cash burn whilst we got our licenses and finished off plants, etc. But now we have a long-term investor on board, and that will get us through to cash generation at Recyclus. And we also we are doing some manual braking of batteries on the lead acid side at Tiverton, and are looking forward to getting the variation in license there, which will allow us to automate the processing. And at the moment, it's making small inroads into our overheads, but it won't be long before we are cash flow positive, which will be a very nice place to be. So that's it from me. Q&A, I presume.
Okay, Alex, tremendous. Thank you so much. That was really good. So you said my question was, when exactly did you become operational? But you told me 4.5 weeks time. Tell me what you do in those 4.5 weeks, and then tell me what happens after that point that makes you cash generative. Talk me through the process. Give me the detail.
Sure. Well, at the moment, we're just on site finishing off the fire suppression systems, and also building a safe space for the lithium-ion batteries to be stored. We can store 100 tons a day on the site, which is a lot of lithium-ion batteries. So we need to make sure that should anything go, should there be any fire issues that can be contained. And so that's what we're up to at the moment. It's just literally those last bits of building going into place, and then the ducting work for the extraction. Because obviously, when you're processing the batteries, you don't want any of the black mass or going into the atmosphere.
Okay, how many tons of lithium-ion batteries do you hope to recycle in the first year, for example? That seems like a fair question.
Well, if you ignore the ramp-up period, then 8,400 tons a year, and we have the permitting to do 22,000. So that the 8,400 is on a single shift, 5 days a week. So there's plenty of scope for increase from there as well, and sweating the asset more.
And what are your thoughts on sweating the asset more? Is that something you would like to think about? Yeah,
absolutely. Of course, we want to get ourselves up and running, and prove the input, prove the process, prove the output, get everything well oiled, and then we can look to increase the throughput there as well. But we'll also be looking at building site 2 very shortly as well. So that's the next thing, is looking for site 2 for both the lead acid and the lithium ion.
Okay, so hold the site 2 thought there for 1 second. As you say, Recyclus owns the IP for both the process and the plant. You talk about Recyclus during that presentation as we and us, which I thought the language was very interesting. They've got plans to construct 5 more lithium-ion recycling plants. Some of those potentially designed specifically for OEM clients in the UK. All fascinating stuff. So. What happens with Recyclus? Will Technology Minerals take over Recyclus, and how will it work in the future?
Absolutely, I know it's the narrative-wise, it's we are very very much conjoined.
Are you conjoined? You conjoined. I can hear that when you speak, but it's not a them and us. You're conjoined.
Oh, well, I happen to have founded Recyclus as well, so and obviously sit on the board. So
and Richard Brundle as well.
Yes, so splitting the narrative has always been a tricky one, which is one of the reasons that we're bringing it together as well. We kept it apart, and originally for EIS reasons and government grants, and then realised that from EIS wouldn't have worked just because of the narrative, and the government grant side. Well, the government love both sides of the business because they're missing both of those parts in the supply chain. So yes, an offer's been made and accepted, and the heads of terms have been agreed. We had a long back and forth with the Financial Conduct Authority at the end of last year about the form of this acquisition and how it would sit, and the documentation required. Mm-hmm. And we finally came to an agreement with them in January. What wasn't clear when we got into it was what the directives would be, what we needed to do. So they gave us those list of directives, and we're working through them now, including a back audit of subcodes, et cetera. So we're working through the process, but we've also been focused on delivering Wolverhampton and the licenses. But the work's ongoing from an abridged perspective at the moment. So we're hoping that we can close out that transaction this quarter.
Okay, so I can understand why you're looking a little bit weary, Alex. Dealing with the FCO at any level is quite a tricky thing.
Absolutely, and the takeover panel and everything else. But
Oh,
yeah,
you poor man. That's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. Which takes, okay, you maybe have already answered all this, but the big question asked by many, and it's useful to give our audience a name check. Let's name check Lee Williams, Peter Roberts, Suad Gesuda. When will the acquisition of 48% owned Recyclus Group happen? Now, is it just as the months go forwards, it will definitely take place?
Yeah, it's there were various things in there. We've been, quite frankly, a little undercapitalized because we expected to get to cash flow positivity earlier, but environmental agency delays have just meant that we've had to sort of tick through, and it's been a slog. But with that, we want to make sure the cash is going to the right places. So the cash has now gone to the right places. We've raised some further capital. We've got cash on the balance sheet. We're about to become cash flow positive, which changes the dynamic of what we're up to. And
when will you become cash flow positive?
It really not going to take long. It won't take long post the beginning of operations. Our business model is extremely lucrative with the fact that we get gate fee and we can sell the Blackmass. As well as obviously as soon as we can get Tiverton up and running, there's good cash generation out of there.
So let's say on the lithium-ion battery front, let's take it a year into the future from the start that you actually start, from the moment you start processing. Give us a sense of what your revenues that you'll generate will look like.
I'm not sure we've put those numbers out there, but certainly
that's why I'm asking clearly. Tell me what you can tell me.
Well, we can certainly get payback extremely quickly, and the business model that we've put out there is one that's self-funding, and it allows us to self-fund another plant of each type each year. The only reason that we'd bring further capital in is just to accelerate that and to take advantage of our first mover advantage rather than let the competition catch up with us. At the moment in this country, we have that first mover advantage, so it makes sense for us to capitalize on it as much as possible.
It does indeed. So which is more profitable, the lead recycling plant or the lithium-ion recycling plant?
The lithium. By some margin, but the lead is still a very nice business, and it's an industry that needs cleaning up. Most of our expansion plans, and we are obviously discussing potential expansion in the US and potential expansion in Europe, and all of our expansion plans really just all focused around lithium-ion. Our lead acid will be for different markets, but it's not a real focus for us outside of this country at this time.
And your ambitions at the moment stretch to 5 new plants, some of them designed specifically for OEMs. So talk me through all that. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, we are planning on another plant each year for lithium-ion, but we are also just that sits within the business model. But outside of our business model is providing plant to OEMs and battery manufacturers. So our process is modular, so we haven't built huge plants. It's affordable. So those the battery manufacturers who want to be able to recycle on site, which they do, means that they can put our modules into their factory. And because we operate because of the IP within our process, we don't go above 80 degrees. So it's very easy for them to have within their factory and within the factory limits the noise levels. The most noise we make is because of the fans. So, it's earmuffed territory. So again, there's no issues there. So it means an OEM can take potentially 3 or 4 of our modules and put them in, because a gigafactory in year 1 has up to 90% waste and that needs recycling. The tolerances are so tight in terms of their manufacturing. But obviously in year 2, that changes dramatically.
So let's be clear, they make lots of batteries which have to be recycled themselves because they weren't up to scratch.
Huge amount of battery scrap off the factory floor that needs to be recycled. Yeah, so we're in discussions with them about providing either on a lease or through acquisition our plant, and then they can scale them back as they're on skids, and they can fit into 540. Our entire process can fit into 540-foot containers, so we can then remove.
What are the main constraints to ramping up the size of the business, would you say? capitalization? Are you still?
We're in a pretty niche space here. We're in a pretty niche space. We are the only people doing this in the UK, so we have a huge amount of interest from what we're up to. So I don't think, currently, obviously, the cash on our balance sheet isn't that large, but we have a huge amount of interest. So if we decide to accelerate this quickly, the support is there. So it's really just getting started, getting to grips with the market, getting our offtakes in place, getting processes in place, and then we can roll it out pretty quickly. So yeah, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to multiply this business very quickly.
Great. Now, Thomas Cooper asks, do you have contracts lined up for the sale of the Blackmass? You've answered my question, which is what is Blackmass for the uninitiated? So you've explained that one. And do you sell it on unprocessed, or will you extract the battery metals yourselves? And you've also explained that. But it's worth having another go at that.
Absolutely.
In the future, you would like to unbundle it and process it and do it for yourselves.
Yeah. So what we do is we do separate out the copper. We separate out the aluminium, the plastics, the papers. All from depending on what where the batteries have come from, and so we'll end up with copper that we could sold out separately, aluminium that's sold out separately, and then we're left with the black mass, which only contains the lithium, the cobalt, the nickel, and the manganese. But the value really sits in the lithium, the nickel, and the cobalt, and more the lithium is getting more and more valuable.
So that gets processed elsewhere at the moment. The black mass, the elements of the black mass left will be processed elsewhere.
So we take samples and we tell them what the constituent parts of it are, and it will obviously depend on what goes in at the front end, because there are different chemistries. But we can take any of those chemistries, and we can create a cake mix of different chemistries for our off takers. But in terms of sale, it's a commodity. We've sent it to major players, samples to major players around the world, all of whom have come back and said they want it all. So we have no fear of being able to not being able to sell it at all. So that side's fine. And the supply side's always going to be the trickier side. But as I said, we have a very niche position here in the UK, and there's no one else doing it. So that makes it fairly easy for us at this time.
On that happy note, Alex, let's say we're out of time and call it a day there. Thank you so much for joining us.